Hello. Are you in for a treat today? I am going to say, as an anti-disclaimer, like you clicked on this video. You know why you're here. You know what's gonna happen, and I'm so happy you're here. Let's go for a ride together. But let's also realize that sometimes it's fun to hate books. So buckle up. We have 10 books to discuss today, ranging from romance to fantasy, series, fiction. We got a little taste of all of it today, and we are going through books that I wanted to love, but I just didn't. Y'all, I know you're ready for this. It is long overdue because the truth of the matter is, in my core, my heart of hearts, I'm a hater. And there's nothing more I want to do on God's green earth than connect with other haters that also want to hate things with me. It's what brings people together. It creates friendships, it creates bonds, and it's what we're here to do today. Now, I already had an anti-disclaimer, but truly, if you love a book I hated, if I love a book you hate, that's life. Like, we can still discuss them. We can still be cordial, of course. But today, thank you, Darcy. But today, I'm truly just gonna give the hard truths. It's gonna get nasty, it's gonna get deranged, and most definitely unhinged. So please join me. I think I'm gonna start with romances because I feel like as much as romances are wonderful, they're also awful. So let's get started. I think the main difference between just books I hate and books I wanted to love but ended up hating is that my expectations for the books or for that author were on a different level. Now, it does not mean that these books got terrible star ratings from me, right? It's just some of these books I expected to be like a 5-star, ended up being a 3. I was disappointed because I wanted to love it. I wanted it to be my new personality trait. So I think that's kind of the differentiating factor when I'm going through these. So I will probably put the star rating on the screen or tell you it. Whatever the vibes tell me to do, I'll do. And yeah, let's get started. Sorry, I felt like I need to give you some context here because I was just gonna like get started, and sometimes it's like not everyone is in here, right? Thank goodness. So let's officially start, and we're gonna start with romance, and I'm gonna start with a heavy hitter that I know is gonna upset people. Let's waste no time getting into it. We are going to start with Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This one is about collegiate athletes, a figure skater, and a hockey player. You guys are following along. You guys are smarty pants. You see the cover. This is about their teams ending up having to share a rink. So there's forced proximity. It's a sports romance. We know what we're getting into here. Let me say, this one ended up being a 3.25 from me, okay? Not a terrible rating, right? I just saw the love for this book, saw the raves, and was hoping I was going to be a 5-star gal, if you know what I'm saying here. Especially because, you guys, wait, I love figure skating. I am into the lore. That one couple, you guys know who I'm talking about on TikTok? The deep dive I could go into on them. Anyway, okay, wait. Let's bring it back to the here and now. But anyways, in my heart, I'm a cutting edge girl. I love all of that. So I really was hoping for a lot from this novel. Let's talk about the good, then the bad. And yeah, we'll probably just do that for each of them because there is good in most of these novels. Not all of them though. At its core, this is a perfect little fluffy read. It's a comfort read. It feels very like slice of life. And it contains some very blush-worthy scenes. So if you like the smut, it's got some of that going for it, for sure. And I will say our characters communicated well, which you know you don't always get. We get that miscommunication trope an awful lot. So they were very communicative. However, getting into the bad, first off, this is a long guy. This book is, yeah, over 400 pages, like 430. This needed to be edited down, I believe. a lot of contemporary romance does not need 400 plus pages. That is my personal opinion. I'm sure someday I'm going to read one that's like 600 pages and love it. It's just day to day, most contemporary romance I don't think needs that much pageage. It doesn't need that many words, okay? And I have to say, I don't really feel like the golden retriever boyfriend trope is for me. Wait till you see my March wrap up though, because I did recently read a book that kind of has a golden retriever male main character, and I did love him. So I don't know if I'm being truthful or not, but he just didn't do it for me. And I think what bugged me about it was like on TikTok, everyone's like, oh my gosh, he is book boyfriend number one. He is doing it all. I'm like, he is just being a good, normal person. And we should want that from all people. So I just felt like he didn't do anything extra that made him book boyfriend material for me personally. The last two things I will kind of hit on that were hard for me in this book is one, there was no trigger warnings anywhere for the fact that our main character really deals with like diet obsession or kind of ED, and nowhere did that trigger warning come up, but it's very prominent in the book. Like she's dealing with a lot of different things, and that is central to that. I feel like it should have had a little bit of context warning there. And the last thing is I hate an epilogue. And I do believe this book is what made me start noticing how much I hated epilogues, because the epilogue in this one was terrible to me, because it took what we knew of our characters and kind of flipped it on a head and didn't really line up with who I believed our characters to be. I thought it undid some things, and I do think if you have a 400-page book, you don't need to be giving me an epilogue about this couple. I've seen a lot of this couple, okay? I don't need any more. I like to not have everything tied up in a bow. I like to imagine their life from there. I like to imagine what's going to happen. So generally, I will say epilogues just don't do it for me, and this one in particular was dog water. So those are my final thoughts there. Also, I will say there is a lot of smut in this one. I would say there's a decent amount. Some of it is polarizing for sure. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Some of it is very odd. Some of it is interesting. So also just keep that in mind. Anyways, first book, we got to keep it moving here because we've got 10 books to talk about. Icebreaker. Next on the docket is another heavy hitter, another hard one, folks. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This one is a romance revolving around an editor and a literary agent. It takes place on vacation for the most part in, small town USA. So that's kind of what we're rolling with. Let's start with the good. Emily Henry's writing and voice comes through really strongly. Obviously she's a great writer. And I will say parts of this book, especially at the beginning, had some killer banter. She knows what she's doing when it comes to banter. She writes beautiful dialogue a lot of the time. But however, let's move to the bad. This one, I felt like the romance was not as central as I wanted it to be. There's a lot going on between our main character and her sister that takes up a good portion of the book. And I would just say overall, I did not have strong feelings for these characters, which I just cannot believe because, of course, I have read all of her other works and books like Happy Place. Like, I feel so deeply for those characters and can imagine them as like well-rounded people. And I just found myself not rooting for this couple, like just feeling neutral, not caring a moment about anything happening. I don't know. I think a big part of it was I felt bored. I felt like the tension was kind of killed pretty early in the book, which, can leave you petering out. And I felt like there was no dramatic conflict that, like, I know we can say what we want about the third act breakup, but if you're gonna have something like that there, I want it to be dramatic. I want there to be a wow factor. And this book just had zero wow factor for me. I still ended up giving it, I think, a 3.25 or 3.5. Still decent. It just ended up not being something you want to write home about. You know what I'm saying? Next, we have The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is the third in the Kiss Quotient series. Actually, I do have that one on my shelf. I don't own this one that I'm discussing today, but this is the first one. I loved this. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and I think that's why I was so excited about this third installment, because the third one features Quan, who is one of my favorite characters from the book, and it is about his romance with Anna, who is dealing with burnout and a recent diagnosis from her therapist that she's kind of trying to come to terms with. And Quan is hit a really hard spot in his life and is dealing with some medical diagnoses of his own. We have 2 characters that are in a really hard spot. Let's go over the good first. I think I'm already tiptoeing towards bad with that statement, but let's look at the good. There was a lot of character development in this book. I really felt like our characters grew a lot and they're dealing with a lot in their lives. So I feel like the book focused a lot on them dealing with hardships, and it had great representation. But that first part is kind of the double-edged sword. I think this book focused too much on the personal development of each person and not quite enough on the romance. I also felt like this book really focused on Anna, who is a new character to us, and Quan is a side character from the first 2 books. I really wanted this book to be about him, and I think it was a lot more about Anna. It was dual perspective, but I felt like it wasn't dueling. I felt like I was basically reading just about Anna a lot and less about Quan. Also, this book was missing the lightness and like the heartfelt warm fuzzies that the Kiss Quotient had. It was very heavy, and everything these 2 characters are dealing with is very heavy. The lightheartedness is kind of gone, and Quan, who is supposed to be a very lighthearted character, is very sad and dreary in this installment, which was just kind of heartbreaking. So this one ended up not being a favorite, unfortunately. Next, we have one that I am scared to talk about, but I've already spoke my truth on this a few times, so I'm hoping no one comes for me with this statement. But next is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first in the Chestnut Springs series. This one really didn't hit for me, and I just know so many people loved it, and that was really hard to deal with not enjoying myself while reading it. This one is a cowboy romance. The whole series are cowboy romances, but this one features a bull rider who is signed kind of a babysitter by his agent to manage him and clean up his image. So that is the premise for this one. Honestly, on the side of good, I actually thought the premise was pretty interesting. However, I never really felt connected to our leads. I never cared a ton about them. It was hard because I felt like Summer, our main character, was like supposed to be this ball buster. Like, I'm trying to read the back, but I feel like she was originally described as like a ball buster, gonna get him in line, make him do what she wants. And when we got down to it, she was kind of a pushover in every sense. And I felt like it just had some half-baked tension for the most part. Plus, the forbidden element was kind of cringe. And I don't think it came across correctly because Summer is his agent's daughter who works for him, if that makes sense. So I didn't think that worked well. I don't know, you guys. It just did not hit for me. Let me know if you guys ended up liking others in that series more, because I do want to try cowboy romance again. It's just, this kind of put me off of the entire genre. So let me know maybe one later in that series, because I didn't mind her writing at all. Let me know if there's one later in that series that you liked, or if there's a different series that you really loved, because I do want to read some this summer. So let me know. Next is Malibu Rising. This one is by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It follows 4 famous siblings in 1983 during a 24-hour period during their massive end of summer party they throw together every year. The good of this novel, I think it had some cool nostalgia factors for the 80s. I liked how there were some cameos from other Taylor Jenkins Reid novels, some character crossovers, if you will. And I do think Nina had a strong voice. She was a strong character to read from her perspective. However, the thing about this novel is it's supposed to be about all 4 siblings, and really everyone felt like a side character to me except for Nina. And I just didn't see the connection between the siblings. Like, it was almost like they were strangers to each other. Like, it was very odd. I didn't get sibling vibes from them. And unfortunately, because there was only one real strong voice, I found this one to be kind of boring, despite like the time frame they set it up in, and it's supposed to be this massive, really cool party. Like, it just did not speak to me at all. And that's that. That's all I gotta say there. Okay, y'all. The next few, we have a couple that it's hard to find nice things to say about, but we will try our best. Next, we are talking about The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This one is about 2 shifter wolves that get into a fake dating situation, and we know where all those lead. So that is our premise for this one. I have to say, it was an interesting setup. I think the beginning had some things going for it. The first 25 to 30%, I was like reading really quickly. I was engaged. However, I started to notice far too many similarities with this and The Love Hypothesis. I did just read that about a month ago, so it was fresh in my brain, and I just felt like she was trying to do Allie Hazelwood, and it's like, well, you're not Allie Hazelwood. So I felt like her voice was really like trying to be that, and I didn't love it because it wasn't done as well to me. Not only that, but this book was, again, another 400 plus pager, and it didn't have a ton of background on these shifter wolves or a lot of context to that. So I was like, I don't feel like we need 400 plus pages. It ended up being just tons of smut, which I gotta say, like, I love the steam, but it doesn't have to be every 2 pages, and I think that takes away from some of the depth of the relationship if that's all it is. And it's fine if you like reading that. I totally get it. It's just, it depends on what I'm looking for from a novel, and from a 400 plus page novel, I'm looking for some depth for sure. I also think part of me feeling like it was too long has to do with the fact that the characters got together too soon. And so then the story really dropped off. That was the only really interesting thing going on, and they got together, I want to say like 40% the way through. Then I felt like the dialogue got very cringe between the two, and there was questionable smut. You know what's hard is I picked this book up purely because I loved Bride. And I was like, okay, Omegaverse, it's for me. And maybe the truth of the matter is Omegaverse is not for me, and I just happen to like Bride. Does that make sense? I don't know if you guys had similar feelings, but a lot of people recommended this book because it was similar to Bride, and it just wasn't similar in the ways I would have wanted it to be. Okay, y'all. It's time to talk about a book that is possibly my lowest rated book in the history of books, and that is Assistant to the Villain. This one is by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I gotta be honest here. If you asked me the good in this book, I would say no. None. Zip, zero, zilch. There is nothing worth my time in this book, and I truly believe that. The cringe in this book is beyond anything I have ever digested in my entire life. This book reads like it was for 12-year-olds, so I did look at it again. I was like, maybe this is YA, and I can lessen my hate a little bit. No, it's an adult fantasy. It's an adult fantasy romance. So for that, I almost want to knock it down to a half star. It should be a half star, because where was the adult? Where was the adulting in this novel? Nowhere to be seen. The dialogue was painful. The plot didn't really make sense. Let's be honest with ourselves. And I think I read a description that said this was like a mix between something in The Office. And I was like, be so for real. You think this book is Office level funny? No. No, no, no. Y'all on TikTok? You on TikTok? You guys did me dirty with this one. Painful, excruciating. I will never stop talking about how much I hated this book, and I can't believe more are coming out. Like, be so for real. Let's just move on. Let's move on, but I've never felt like a book has wasted more of my time than this one. Okay, glad I got that off my chest. Glad I got that out there for y'all because, come on, it had to be said. Next on the docket is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a debut novel. I've talked about it a few times because I did my wrap up and it was in it like a month or two ago. But nonetheless, this is about a kingdom that's trying to eradicate ordinaries, which are just regular people, from their elite society that has powers. Our main girl is an ordinary who ends up making it into the purging trials. Chaos ensues. A lot happens from there. The good in this book, there was quite a bit of good. I did like the nostalgic vibe. I used to love stories like this. It had a lot of those elements that, you know, I loved when I was reading at 15. And I have to say, I actually really liked our male main character. I thought he was morally gray in a lot of great ways. I thought she handled that well. And I will continue this series. So it has that going for it. On the bad side, you know, I think I've seen this film before. And it's not that I didn't like the ending, it's just I've seen it before, okay? It's the Hunger Games, the selection, and Red Queen. Oh my gosh, so much Red Queen in this one. And I was like, okay, I know this story. Like, you don't have to tell it to me again. And I just have to say, there was so many repetitive elements, scenes, dialogue, phrases, nicknames, that sometimes it was just like, okay, girl, we can cut like one or two knife to the throat scenes from this novel because she's doing it every other page and now it means nothing to me. Okay? So the thing is, I think Lauren Roberts has a lot of promise. I think the series could end up being really interesting, but I want to see more originality, I'll say, from this next one. So I hope she brings that to us. I have not lost hope for the series, but I definitely thought this one would be a 5-star because everyone's loving it, and it didn't get up there. Okay, y'all, we got 2 more. These are installments in fantasy series. Maybe not heavy hitters. I don't know. It's hard to say how people will feel about these thoughts, but you know, we'll see. This next one is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is second to Fourth Wing in the Imperium series. Okay, this one was a train wreck for me. Again, I do have a wrap up talking in more detail about this book because I did read it pretty recently. I have to be honest, when I was trying to think of what was good in this novel, nothing came to mind. This one was very, very upsetting. It needed practically everything fixed. I feel like a few more rounds of editing would have been great for this book. This book felt like Mrs. Yarros was churning it out and not really thinking deeply about our characters and where the story was going. I felt like our characters didn't act how you expected them to. Suddenly they're totally different. I think the miscommunication or like the big argument between our couple in this book was dumb and didn't have a lot of depth. It was just like, we're just gonna keep fighting because we are. Also, the lack of dragons, and it's like, why are the dragons even on here? Because you don't care enough to talk about them. They don't even matter in this one. And that's why I'm here predominantly, is to see these dragons. So, like I've said in a past video, I won't be continuing on with this series. I just can't see these characters further ruined. And Xaden is no longer Zaddy. And that's not my fault, that's hers. So, y'all, I gotta set this aside. I gotta be done with it. I gotta get it off my shelves, frankly, because it's just agonizing to look at. Okay, the last one we have to talk about today might also be controversial, such as life. This one is A Court of Silver Flames by Miss Sarah Janet Maas. Holy schmoly. This one was long. This was a big boy. I did read this a few years ago, so don't come for me if I don't remember everything to a T. But let's start with the good. For me, the best part of this book was the Valkyries subplot. I really liked the people Nesta befriends in this novel. I liked the training, and I did feel like there was some strong banter at the beginning of this novel, which, you know, cannot be overlooked. However, for me, this book just didn't feel like it belonged in like this core set of novels, I felt like Freya and my Rysand were done dirty. I'm gonna say it. They aren't meant to be side characters, and she made them do things to further Nesta's plot that I don't think they would have done. I don't believe that they would have done some of the things she had them do. Their actions were not becoming of their characters, and it drove me up the wall because obviously I've read 3 books with those characters. I stan them. And Nesta, I can't stand. She is not my girl. She is irritating. I don't care. I don't care. It was too long. I didn't care about what she was up to. I didn't care about the romance plot. I just wanted my main man and girl together, and I just want to read more about them. Sue me. Yeah, my truth had to be spoken, okay? I couldn't be silenced. That is how I feel about Court of Silver Flames. You guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my unhinged thoughts. I told you we were going to go there. We were going to go deep with it and battle our demons. I wanted to love these books, but I didn't. And it's okay to not love books that are popular. It's okay. We all get to have our own opinion, which is beautiful, wonderful. I love that about the book community. We all get to feel differently. That being said, please let me know in the comments some books that you wanted to love, but you just didn't. It happens to the best of us. We go in with expectations and they just aren't always met. Also, I really do want some cowboy romance recs for this summer, so if any come to your head, please leave those below too. Thank you for spending this afternoon with me. You know, it's fun to get to talk about books. Even if we're talking about books we don't like, it's fun to be brutally honest with y'all. You guys are my tightest friends. We are a tight little friend group here, and I have to tell you how it is, because who would I be if I didn't give it to you straight? So thank you for being here. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and you know how it goes. I gotta love you and leave you. See you in the next one. Cheers.